Insane seafarer said, I met my wife on Saipan 22 years ago and she refused to leave this island and come to the States with me. I thank her for that. Yes, there are a few people who may have gotten their green card, may have gotten a U.S. citizenship, but the goal is not to move to the U.S. because they've realized that things may not be as nice as they are here. So thanks for that input, which brings me to a point that I wanted to talk about, which is if you're planning to move from Saipan to the U.S., then I'll give you some advice that I've given several people. I've had friends who are Bangladeshi, I've had friends who are Ghanaian, friends who are Filipino, who have um, discussed their plans to move to the continental United States, and I've suggested a few things to them. One of them is that even though you may make a lot more money per hour in the United States, you end up spending a lot more of it in the mainland. You end up spending a lot more of it on rent. You end up spending a lot more of it on food. You end up spending a lot more of it on taxes. You end up spending a lot more of it on property tax. So you might end up actually being worse off than you are here, making less an hour, because here on Saipan, there's no tax, no sales tax, no property tax. You can actually get food here free. And this is something to think about. If you are living on Saipan, the food that you ate today, ask yourself a question. Where did it come from? The coconut that you drank, the guavas or the mangoes or whatever it is that you had. Was it growing in your backyard? Did you go down just to the corner and grab some malunggay off a tree? Did you have a neighbor who has mangoes falling all over their property and just they gifted you a bag of mangoes? How did you get the food that you're eating? Especially if you're a local, a native resident of the island. Now, contrast that with living in the United States. Where did you get the food that you're eating in the United States? Chances are you had to buy it. And something you may not realize is that any food that you have in your refrigerator in the United States, there's a 90% chance that you actually had to take money out of pocket in order to put it there. Whereas on Saipan, that may not be the case. There's food that I have that, bananas that people have just given to me because they're growing in their backyard. There's mangoes. So it's a little aspect of life that you may not take seriously. But what that does is it puts a higher value on food, and ergo it puts a higher value on money. Ergo, it puts a higher value on your time. So you have to spend more time making more money to buy more food that you otherwise would have gotten or could have gotten free here on Saipan. So that puts more value on your time, less time to spend with loved ones, less time to actually enjoy life. So that's one thing to consider. Another thing to consider, as I mentioned before, is that space is a little more at a premium. So I mentioned in an earlier video that when I went back to the Bronx to visit a friend in Co-op City, I had to sit outside on in my car on the street for close to 2 full hours waiting for a parking space to open up so that I could, park and then go visit my friend. That's something that you may not even be able to conceptualize here on Saipan, how space is at a premium, especially in big cities like New York and Atlanta and California. Other states may not be so much, but the point is that the quality of life, the amount of time you spend driving from one place to another, the amount of time you spend parking, the cost of the parking tickets, a lot of things can add to the quality of life that you may not be anticipating. So those are two things that I prepare my friends for, is that they may find that they have less time to spend with friends and family. And now, again, having said that, I would also suggest that if you decide to move to the States from Saipan or Tinian or Rota, and you realize that it's not for you, then I would urge you to have the courage and the strength to move onward or come back, in search of a more pleasing lifestyle. And the reason I mention that is a lot of people end up getting stuck in the States for various reasons. I remember reading a forum post years ago when I first discovered a website called happierabroad.com run by Winston Wu. And immigrants from India were discussing how their lives had changed now that they had moved to the United States. And one of the things that they all noticed was that there was less community support. They had less of their family around them to support them. They were all on their own. And most importantly, they couldn't go back to India. Um, and I've heard the same thing from the Philippines as well and other countries, because the reason they couldn't go back is because there would be a certain amount of embarrassment, a certain amount of shame attached to them coming back. Because a lot of people back home where they come from have been sold a perception of the United States that, one, it's easy, two, the streets are paved with gold. As one Filipino friend said of mine, it's mine said, it's the land of rainbows and chocolate and honey. And then when she got there, she realized that it was cold, dark, and miserable, where she was. So, but they couldn't come back because everyone back home expects them to be able to make it in the States, because they've seen all the magazines, they've watched all the movies, they have this impression that America is a place that you can make it. So that if they realize that it's not what they've been told, they can't go back, because everyone will think that they are the problem, that they are a loser. So I would suggest that you have the intestinal fortitude to shift gears and come back if you find out that things are not the way you anticipated, or at least move on to some other location where you can find the sort of lifestyle that you want. So hope that's helpful to you. Again, it's just to reemphasize the fact that people have lived entirely fulfilling and productive lives in other places other than the mainland US. And without disparaging my American friends, some of my best friends are American. I will say that a lot of people find out that things, especially on an economic level, are not as peachy keen as they may have been led to believe. So just a comment I wanted to make to Insane Seafarer, and I hope that's helpful to someone else, and I'll see you in the next video.
Subscribe.
You know, hear what the man say.